They have long ago converted the old high school building for other use in this little town. The gymnasium that on most nights was packed to the rafters and beyond capacity too has long ago been changed over for other use for the community. But if you drive by the old gymnasium, or for a more resounding effect, just peek through the doors and step in, you get an eerie feeling that seems to take over your mind, if only for a little while. You can almost hear the crowds cheering the home team on. There goes the final buzzer, another home victory for sure. Another opponent bites the dust. I mean, after all, it was always that way for this bunch. Always. From 1975 until 1980, on that old campus in that old gymnasium, these boys never, and I mean never, lost a game on their home hardwood. Folks in town still remember, even if it was long ago. The memory of these champions still has not gone away.
Ray Molino started that. I used to call some baseball games, and then eventually I called a few basketball games, not high school, but at AUM and at Faulkner. And then we started doing the football games here in Wetumpka. They were good boys, and you know, the thing I remember mostly about them when they were in school was Coach Walter Long. He's dead and gone now, but he was teaching PE, and he had them all in PE. He had Steve Slaughter and Lewis and Teddy and Martin Crenshaw and Danny Williams and all of them out there, and they'd play basketball. And he made this statement to me one time. He said, "This bunch is going to do something one of these days." So that's the situation. We knew early on that they were going to do good, and they didn't disprove it.
So we start our journey here. Buckle up. This trip down memory lane is like none other. 42 years ago, this small town high school basketball team accomplished a feat that no other team in school history had ever come close to. They won the school's first ever state championship in any team sport. And for good measure, they came back a year later and repeated as state champs for back-to-back titles. The years were 1979 and 1980. The school, Wetumpka High School. The town, Wetumpka, Alabama. A small town with a population under 5,000, situated 15 miles from the state capital of Montgomery. There were celebrations, of course. A police escort awaited them at the outskirts of town as they made it back to the city limits. And yes, just as one might expect, the police escort was complete with flashing blue lights. A car parade through the neighborhoods was in store for them as the police led the way back into town after their trip to Tuscaloosa for the state tournament, or Title Town, as they called it back then.
Well, I've always been one that's been involved in school, and if you see a bunch of young men who've got much on the ball, you want to be a part of something that's great, and I recognize what they were. I started out just as a athletic trainer. I started with Teddy because he had injured his ankle and it had to be taped every day, I figured out I taped his ankle probably 125 to 130 times that year. And they needed people to help. Well, if you're going to be a part of a school, you're going to help wherever you can. So I also kept the clock for home games, and then for the next year, their senior year, I kept the scorebook. And so I was trying to give back to these young men, this great team, whatever I could to help them.
There was a big pep rally at the school to present the state championship trophy, or the Blue Plate Special, as it was called, to the student body, who went completely wild at the sight of their champions and the school's first ever championship trophy. There were banquets and congratulatory letters and awards and big write-ups in the local paper. The Wetumpka Herald, of course. Even the big city Montgomery Advertiser had the champs on their front page, and the state's largest city paper, the Birmingham News, even featured Wetumpka's champs too. The whole town was abuzz and just so proud. These boys had done something no others had done. Folks from all walks of life came by the school just to say congratulations and to get a peep, just a peep, at that blue trophy that seemed larger than life at the time. These boys had done good, and all of Wetumpka just bristled with pride. They had put Wetumpka on the map, finally. And just like the cheer that many of the spectators chanted when the final buzzer went off at the championship game, they had truly showed that we're from Wetumpka. Couldn't be prouder. If you can't hear us, we'll yell it a little louder. These boys had done Wetumpka's yelling with their outstanding basketball play.
We were in the old gym back then, not the modern gym, but we were in the old gym, and the seating capacity was, we could handle a lot of people in there, but they packed it out. They packed out the gym whenever they played. People wanted to come and witness this and see them, how they control themselves, how they handle the ball, and how they move up and down the court. So it was exciting to watch them. So there was an aura about them that just kind of drew you in to, this is greatness. And these guys are going to be good, and I want to see it. I want to watch it. I want to be a part of this. Basketball, it was always a great sport around Wetumpka, and they had some good teams. But this was a group that had the potential of being great.
They won 29 games, only one defeat in 1979, to finish 29-1. A year later, the 1980 champs were 28-4, on their way to a repeat performance. By then, everybody throughout all of Alabama knew about the boys from Wetumpka High School and their ferocious basketball team. One college coach even came and offered every graduating senior a scholarship in 1980 if they would come and put his school's colors on and bring their talents to his town. These guys had it all. But for 42 years, there's been one thing missing. The team never received state championship rings. To some, it might seem like a trivial thing, but a few conversations with some of the team members will quickly reveal that those elusive state championship rings and the lack thereof has never drifted far from their minds as to when would they finally get to slide those shiny, well-earned rings on their fingers.
Basketball was pretty much our whole life, to be honest with you. We grew up neighborhood friends, playing at the rec. So everything we did centered around playing basketball, being in competition with each other. So that was a lifelong endeavor for us.
Our thinking was we knew we were good enough, we knew that we could. We were definitely not lacking in confidence, and we wanted to win a championship and bring it back to the city of Wetumpka. It was something that we had prided ourselves on in playing basketball. We all loved the game, and something we had looked forward to from junior high all the way through high school. So it was our opportunity, and we wanted to cash in on it.
It was just a wonderful thing. You know, we were young kids at the time, and we just competed hard and played hard, and we wanted to bring some joy and excitement to the city of Wetumpka, and that was one way that we were able to achieve that goal.
It would be great if our story started and ended here, but if you know anything about Wetumpka, Alabama, it's not just that simple. If you've never heard of Wetumpka before, sit back and listen up. This story is one to truly be shared over and over again. You see, this team's success was years in the making. Some might even say that this championship story started when the guys was on this team were knee-high to a duck. Wetumpka was like most southern towns and cities back then. Even though integration had supposedly taken root, the vestiges of segregation often lingered in the minds of most. After all, before integration, the all-black Elmore County Training School, which later became W.B. Dobie High School, had some terrific athletic teams of their own. Closing down and moving to the all-white Wetumpka High School was not particularly popular with either side of the affected school.
It affected us in the sense that we knew how to play ball, and when we went over to Wetumpka High, there was a lot of setting up and running plays and such where we was used to on the playground, but we learned the plays. It wasn't a problem learning the plays there. But going over playing in what we call organized ball, it slowed us down a lot, but there are times on the court where in the heat of the battle that we get the rebound and throw it out and start the fast break. We just do it on our own. So it wasn't really a struggle there. We just have to indoctrinate ourselves to the method that the coaches at Wetumpka High was using.
It was tough in those early days of integration in the early 70s. There were black players who thought they should have been selected for the school's basketball team and believed they were not picked because of their race. There were white players who believed they were not selected for the team because the school was catering too much to the black players. Growing pains for sure. There were some pretty good basketball teams in those days. They turned in solid performances for sure. The 1975 team almost made it to the state tournament, finishing 27-1, but losing nonetheless in the regional finals. One game shy of going to Tuscaloosa. But none had gone where the 1979 and 1980 teams would go, all the way to state. And that's kind of where our story really begins, except for not quite yet. You see, these 1979 and 1980 champions, the guys who've waited 42 years for their state championship rings, well, they were being groomed for greatness the old-fashioned way. They were learning the games as snotty-nosed knuckleheads, as they recall just by attending high school games in the old high school gymnasium and watching Wetumpka stars before them. They would eat popcorn and drink Coca-Cola all night long, cheering for their idols on the Wetumpka teams of the early 70s. Their heroes from those teams: Super Chicken Mitchell, Jerry Bikes, Winfred Wise, Ed Jackson, Ricky Lewis, Bill Franklin, Larry Big Oop McKeithen, and Kenny Marshall, just to name a few.
Oh man, I tell you what, born and raised here in Wetumpka, like most kids, my dream was just to play ball one day. I guess the people I probably respected the most, the idols that I had, was like the Bruce Lee guy, the martial art guy, and Maravich, the Pistol Pete. And I'll never forget one of the things that he had said was, if you want to be good at something, you need to practice it if you put 10,000 hours into it. And I remember getting out a pen and paper, and I figured out, well, if you did that 3 hours a day for 10 years, that would get you 10,000 hours in something. But really, like most kids that were interested in sports in high school, most of them didn't just play one sport. Most of us were multi-sport guys, and most of these guys you'll see were multi-sport guys, but played basketball and I played football, and enjoyed them equally well. But it was a blessing to play with those guys. Those memories that I don't think anybody can ever take from us.
Well, coming up as a young kid, you know, most our activity was going to Wetumpka Rec, doing it after school and doing the summer program, and the older guys be out playing. So, you know, you want to partake and participate in the, you know, summer ball as well. So that's how I got a love for the game, playing basketball, even though I was playing with kids that was much older than I were. But that was the three of me just get out there and compete and play against them.
Oh man, growing up with them, not knowing that we were going to have a championship team, we always played when we was little kids and stuff in the neighborhood. But as we grew older, we were getting played more basketball because that's all we had to do around there, and we loved it. But we had some older guys play before us that influenced us, like Winford Wise and all of that stuff. So we wanted to be like them, Jerry Bikes. Certain guys, you know, were still in the hood, because we wanted to be like them guys, legendary players, ball players. So also we had some older guys, way back in the day was pros, like my brother Billy Lewis and Curly Bowman, Ed's uncle, and his brother Raymond Jackson. They taught us all that stuff. And Coach Twitty was the one in high school and guided us, and when we played in high school. So it was fun when we got to get older and start playing basketball together, because Bill Franklin had a goal in his backyard that he could practice in with his stuff every day, but we had to play against each other up at the rec center on the dirt. We even started out with rims that you used to have, make your own basketball goal with the wood back and the rim from a bicycle tire. We just wanted to play, you know, every day we played.
We was all together, all of us was seniors, and we thinking about we gonna win a championship. And then we're like, it didn't work out for us. We lost by 1 point to Chillersburg that night because of not thinking at the right time. We lost by 1 point because we didn't have any more time out, and it was a heartbreaker. And then Lewis and Teddy and all these guys was right behind us looking at this. You know, we set the tone for those guys. Mm-hmm. And it was a good thing, because I went to all their championship games, 79 and 80. And they had the same kind of identical team that we had, but the only thing about their team, they had a bench. And we didn't have a bench and everything. We 5 just had to play every night. And we went 27-1.
So with 5 players, y'all went 27-1.
27-1.
Yeah, that's good in my books with just 5 players. So with their team, with the 1979 team and the 1980 team, they had a starting 5 plus a bench.
Plus a bench.
Oh,
and just like we was out there talking a while ago, Bernard Mack, he could have started. But Coach Bazemo saw something in him coming off the bench. And
6-man.
6-man, there you go. And he was tough. As that 6th man, he didn't get upset and say, I want to start. You know, it wasn't none of all that animosity stuff, you know, keeping the team all confused, who gonna do what tonight and all of that. And because that's kind of what happened to us in probably about the 10th grade, I think, if I'm thinking right. Because like I said, all of us were together. But we had so much going on with other players that was on the bench, and we didn't really have a bench. But they wanted to play, get more playing time and everything.
Then they would go back to their elementary school the next day, often foregoing lunch to play pickup games against one another, often attempting to imitate the slick moves of the stars they idolized from the night before. They couldn't get enough of it. It was always the lower grade against the higher grade, third grade versus the fourth grade. Then a year later, it was fourth grade versus fifth grade, always out to prove which grade was the best. Physical education teachers Walter Long and Charles Twitty were the catalyst in creating the competitive fire that ran deep in these guys.
Well, I was always athletically interested, inclined, and so once I graduated from high school, I entered college and I wanted to be a coach. And so once I did graduate, I came to Wetumpka to do my student teaching, and I was able to get a job here. And in fact, I spent pretty much my entire career here working. And for the first part of my career, I taught physical education, and I was able to try to help kids do what I was able to do when I was coming through in high school.
After school, they would continue their battles at the Wetumpka Recreation Center, affectionately known as the Rec. The old basketball court there, too, has long been converted. Just the asphalt remains now. Often, they would combine as fourth and fifth graders, challenging much older players, many who were grown men on the old asphalt basketball court. And boy, would they battle, often knocked down with bloody knees and a few bloody noses, too, all the while being groomed for a destination that one day would unite a once segregated town like nothing before them and nothing after them to this very day.
Well, guys really didn't need a lot of motivation. When you're as talented as those guys were, it's just a matter of how good you want to be. Like I said, everybody knew they was pretty good. It could be pretty good, but until they convinced themselves, man, we got something special here. And if we don't do nothing else, if we don't leave if we want to leave our legacy, I guess, to the high school, you guys got the opportunity. You never walk away from our opportunity. And surely, it didn't take much motivation from me. I was kind of glad to be with those guys, because like I said, I watched them in the state tournament their junior year, and I had no idea by the senior I'd be sitting on the bench with them, So it really didn't take a lot of motivation, We just tried to stay focused, and I told them just stay focused, guys, because like you got something special here. In fact, it may be a while before anybody go back to back, especially here in Wetumpka,
Well, after we won it in '79 and then to get back to the state tournament in '80, the pressure really was off in 1980. We felt like we had been groomed to be where we were both years, even going back to grade school, we felt like we never felt like we would ever lose any ball game. We'd never lost any home basketball games the whole time we played from 8th grade all the way through. But in '80 at the state tournament, it really was easier because we had been there, we knew what to expect, and we felt like we belonged, and there was nobody that was going to knock us off the throne. And for us, nobody did those 2 years. We were Wetumpka's pride, and this just made a whole lot of difference in our lives all these years, even 42 years later. That feeling still feels good.
In the early on, when we was younger, maybe 8th grade, 7th, 8th grade, we spent a lot of time in the neighborhood playing out in the level that Greg, Bernard Mack, myself, James Bikes, his older brother Michael Bikes. We spent a lot of time playing there in the level. As we got older, we spent most of everybody that in Wetumpka went to a place called the Wetumpka Recreation Center. It was ran by Mr. Ison Thomas at that time. And that's where we really got to be able to play basketball, because we played some of the Wetumpka legends, Todd Cook, Jerry Bikes, Larry McKilton, Allen Barty, and the list could go on and on, Preacher Cook. Those were the guys that really gave us that drive and that push to play. And you know, I had older brothers, Raymond, who really pushed us, guys who grew up in the level to, you know, go out and do what you do, and playing against those guys, Todd and Jerry Bice and Barty, those guys pushed us, because we always played against with older guys, you know, Speedy, Ezel. Those were the guys that really pushed us to be great ball players.
Before long, they were in junior high, and they quickly became the toast of all of Elmore County. A perfect 16-0 junior high record, often annihilating opponents by 30 points or better in games. A loss at the end of the season in the junior high regional spoiled an otherwise perfect year. When the 1978-79 season rolled around, they were battle-tested and game-ready. Head coach Stokely Bazemore would have challenged providing playing time for such a talented group, but he dialed up just the right mixture, as the 29 victories were the most in school history, and of course the state championship was the crown jewel that came at the conclusion of the season. It had been years in the making, as far back as third grade.
It was really tough because of the experience that the older guys had. Practice was tough. At the end of practice, you might be bloody. You had to, I mean, it was almost like you had to fight out there, but there wasn't no fight. Everybody loved each other. But the experience that I had, it made me better in life, and later on my senior year. It made me tougher because I was the smallest guy on the team. I think it was two underclassmen, me and James Bikes. And so we were the young guys. So for us playing time, we didn't get that much, but for us getting in the trenches and practice and stuff, we was right there with us, and it prepared us for the for our senior class and for the tournaments later on. But it was very, very tough.
You know, battling these guys, man, it was tough for me because I was stepping up, you know, into the senior role. So they was all like, you know, knocking me around and getting me ready and getting me tough. So that's mainly, and the training was so hard, that really prepared me for the games.
Yes, sir. Hey, it was just like another moment. They called me Thin Man back then. You know, the reason they called me Thin Man was because Iceman was already taken. But you know, Ice known for being cool under pressure, so I've always played that way. So when it came down to those free throws, I was just thinking about I wasn't ready to go home, and I was looking at my teammates, and everybody looked like they was depending on me. So I told them, I said, we got this, who we playing next? So I just went out there, calmly made the first shot, like we do at practice all the time. We practice free throws. So I know at one time I was hitting like 30, 40 in a row at practice. So I just took it to practice and just let it fly. That first one went. They tried to call time out, you know, make me think about the second, but once that first one went, that second was automatic.
The repeat performance for a second state championship in 1980 was all the sweeter for the guys who had literally been groomed for such accomplishments when they were snotty-nosed knuckleheads. There was talk that they would get state championship rings. Days turned into weeks, weeks turned into months, months. Well, you get the picture. Months rolled into year after year after year after year. 5 years, no rings. 10 years, no rings. 20 years, no rings. The guys came together for a small reunion on the 30th anniversary of the first championship. And of course, the big topic was the rings. There was a whole lot of talk, but still no action towards securing those elusive rings. Fast forward 12 years, and now 42 years later, the state championship rings are still heavy on their minds.
Well, I would say, from growing up in the level, we always had a high back then in the late 70s and early 70s and 80s to be the best we could be, because we came back from Big Oop, Louis Jackson, and we want to prove that we can win a state championship.
Well, honestly, for me, the feeling was I was glad it was over. The first year was a joy, and it was all new to us. We'd come off a heartbreaking regional final loss to B.B. Comer when I was a sophomore, but we had a great team returning, one that had played together since the 6th grade, so we knew we could be special if it all came together. We were good, we had depth, we had 10 people who could play, and we just enjoyed winning. And most of all, we relished and appreciated the glory and notoriety that came with it. We had a few hiccups along the way with some injuries, but finished strong down the stretch. But we got the tough one, which was the first one. It was behind us, but we knew how to win under pressure as we started to prepare for year number 2.
Yes, that's right. I consider myself a key role on the team because I consider the team mine. At the time when we won the championship, I realized that was something that didn't just occur. It was something that had actually taken place years ago when the guys was growing up playing in backyards, gymnasiums, all over the city of Wetumpka. It actually began at W.B. Dobie High School, Wetumpka Middle School, and ended up at Wetumpka High on the big stage at the University of Alabama.
Folks around town still talk about Big Louis Chips Jackson and his patented turnaround fadeaway jumper, and Bernard B. Mack, who was instant energy, crashing the boards like a tower above all others, and Louis Teddy Washington with his lightning quick hands, often ripping the ball out of opponents' hands without them understanding how. And Steve Slewfoot Slaughter, the only white player on the team who could drill the deep ball from his patented corner position, and Jerry Holt running the 2 position, catching passes on the wings and drilling his quick release jumpers, and Danny Thin Man Williams, the only lefty of the crew who could swish the nets anywhere on the floor. And everyone still remembers Martin Tamp Crenshaw with his bow legs and his tailor-made hook shot and mid-range jumper, and Greg High Pockets Terrell with his quick moves to the basket and jumpers from the wing, and Curtis Frank Mitchell with his smooth inside and wing moves, and the Cook boys, both deceased now, Alfonso and Alonzo, Little Coon and Big Coon, a year apart in age, with Big Coon a high jumper with a serious corner shot, and Little Coon a battle axe in the paint, often dominating inside with Tony Cox Simmons, who was a monster inside with his upper body strength, and Charlie Willie Crenshaw, one of 2 babies of the bunch, who was a junior on the 1980 team, but boy, could he shoot the deep ball. Then the other baby, James Bikes, with his quick feet and fancy ball handling. And how could we leave out the support staff, the managers, Ray Goodman and Brown, which would be Ray Molyneux, Chris Goodman, and Tim Brown, feeding water, coats, and towels to the champions like the best in the land. And the old man Stephen Roy, the statistician with awesome game summaries. All together, these guys were and still are Wetumpka's pride, Wetumpka's first and only state basketball champions, 42 years and counting. And what about those state championship rings? Well, thanks to a mayor, a city council, and a town that never forgot the spirit of these champions and the unity and pride that still rings true in this city today, here they are, guys, here they are. They are still cheering 42 years later, just like it was 1979 and 1980. Welcome home, champs. We salute you. 42 years in the making. WHS, the baddest team from east to west. Yes, they're from Wetumpka. Couldn't be prouder. If you can't hear them, they'll yell a little louder. We're from Wetumpka. Couldn't be prouder.